Okay, welcome to lesson 3 of Class Quiver, where we will learn about layouts and seat charts. Essentially, what you're seeing here, the layout of your students in this class. So, here's my activities. Random seats and seat restrictions will be our first topic. Then we're going to change and save the layouts. Important. Then we're going to hide seats, and then we're going to adjust pictures, and finally select students. So let's get started with the random seat and seat restrictions. If I start my timer, it'll in 2 minutes, just guessing. So here we go. We have this is your default layout, and you should know that your layouts can go in any way that you want. And the very first item I have under your layouts is a random seat arrangement. So I'm going to just click on that, and it's going to everybody swap their seats. Everybody, of course, except the empty desks. So, and if you don't like that, you can undo that and have them all go right back. But it's very important to be able to change your layouts from time to time. I would imagine teachers don't like to do this because it takes time, and then the students are always questioning, "Why are you putting me here?" Or, "Well, the computer put you here." That's the end of that. And I like it that my students will have exposure to different kinds of students and different ways of learning and different perspectives. Plenty of research would indicate that changing up your layouts is a really good idea. So I did that. But now, what if Danielle, wants to sit up close to the front where she could see the board? Her eyesight's not so great in the back. So, what you could do is you could assign her to this seat. So I went right click on her and I assigned her to this seat. So now if I ever do a random layout, she won't move. Then you can also make other restrictions. Like if Julie and Renee, they're not getting along very well, what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to right click and say, do not sit by. And I'm going to pick Renee. Now, Julie will not be seated near Renee. Okay, so now if I were to do a layout change, uh, Renee and Julie, wherever she is, they will not be seated near each other. Okay? Well, she's nowhere near Renee anyway. She's out there somewhere. Okay, and then you should know that was it Renee and Julie? I double click on Renee. I'm bringing up her student profile. Notice it doesn't say here she will not be seated next to, but it does on Julie's, and I finally found her. Here she is. You see, she will never sit by Renee, and if I need to clear that, I can right now. Now, you can have only one person that you can assign this kind of restriction to. If you had a group, say Damien, Matt, and Victor should not be anywhere near each other, then you could say, Damien, do not sit by. Oops, I just hit him by accident. I'm going to unhide. Damien, do not sit by Matt. Okay. Matt, do not sit by Victor. And Victor, do not sit by Damien. There. And now when I do my random seat chart, um, you notice it took a little bit longer. It had to figure out what the best seating chart is going to be for them. So anyway, they should not be seated next to each other. Now, if you have too many restrictions, the computer will tell you that's too many. It just can't find a random assortment. In which case, you would just assign them. So who were they? I'm going to go undo that layout change. That was Damien, Matt, and Victor. If that's the case, you know what? I think I'll just assign him to a seat. Matt, how about you and Jordan switch spots? Matt can be back here. And I'm going to say assign him. And then Victor, how about we put you way over here, swap with Glenn. It's a matter of clicking and dragging. And I'm going to assign to that seat. And so now when I do my random layouts, those guys won't move. They'll remain apart from each other. Okay, so that is seat restrictions, and I don't know of any other seat chart program that can do that. Okay, however, we are on changing and saving layouts now. So I want you to know that you can save up to 8 different layouts. Okay, so if I were to save this layout, first of all, I'm going to go save, where am I? Save this layout as, and if this is the first time, it'll ask you to change the name of this layout. So I'm going to save this as default. How's that? And then maybe on some days, I'm going to have them, working in groups. So here's a nice group of 4. Here's a nice group of 4. And I got a group of 4 there, a group of 4 here. How about we take this group of 4 and we move them, over to here. And you might have nice tables where you can do this. Here's a group of 4. I got 2 extra students, so I think I'm going to put 1 on this group and maybe 1 on this group. And you can still do your random assortments. Okay, we have a new assortment of students. Of course, the assigned students did not move. Neither did the empty desks. And if you want them to move again, you got to double click on them and take that assigned off. Or you can right click and say unassign. So, okay. So I'm going to save this one as groups. Oop, groups. So when that day comes in, all you got to do is load that group. When it's a normal day, maybe I'll go load the default. Now you're back to this seating chart. On the group days, I'm going to go layout, load the groups. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to undo that and that last random change here. Okay, so I think what would be really cool is in a pandemic, when you have hybrid schedule where only half the students come, you might want to consider hiding them. And so, you know what? Before I go on to hiding them, I wanted to show you that you can also use layouts that were saved in other classes. So if I were to come to another class, I haven't set this one up with students yet, but okay, so I'm going to go to layouts, load an arrangement from another class, demo class, and let's choose the groups layout and save the current layout. No, I don't need that layout, but there we go. So there's the group layouts that we got from the other class. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the demo class where I was and move on to hiding seats now. So hopefully that's 2 minutes. But I'm going to go back, first of all, to let's go back to my default arrangement. And let's pretend that we have a pandemic going on and we have a hybrid schedule and every other student here will be gone. And then the other half of the class will appear on a different day. So I'm going to create 2 different seating charts. So what I'm going to do is right click on a student and then just hide the seat. I'm going to right click on this student and hide the seat. And so on and so forth. Every other student, of course, they'll tell you exactly which students, but for the purposes of this demo, I'm just going to hide half the students. And, you get the point. So again, I'm going to save this layout as, save the current arrangement as, we're going to call this, how about hybrid A? Right? And then I'm going to bring back all those students and I'm going to hide the other students instead. So under layouts, I can either unhide specific students that I have hidden, or I can unhide them all really quick. Shazam, there we go. Now I'm going to hide the other students. And here we go. Just enough for you to get the idea. Let's say that this is the other half of the class. It comes in on a different day. Under layout, I'm going to say save this arrangement as hybrid B. So on the days that you have your A, then you go load arrangement, load to saved arrangement, and then of course load save arrangement B, and there they all are. I'm going to finally get them all together again, and that's a load to save arrangement default, and we're back to that. Okay, so the nice thing about hiding a student also is when you go to select a student randomly, it won't pick a hidden student as well. All right, now I'm on to adjusting pictures. That sound you heard was just a little reminder to the teacher, letting them know if you're on track or not. We should be on to the next subject, which is adjusting pictures. Oh, we'll start that timer as well. This would automatically start, by the way, if this class was taking place during the scheduled period. Okay, so random seat. Wait, that's not it. We're going to do adjusting pictures. Adjusting pictures. Start that timer. Okay, so I want you to see that all these pictures are of a certain shape, and when you get pictures from your school of the actual students, they all come in the exact same size. Question is, what percentage of the height is the width? And so you would look up a picture. Okay, for adjusting pictures, first notice that all of the seats are going to come in the same shape. So all of the pictures have to conform to these dimensions. And if you have a school system, information system where you can get your pictures of your students, they all as well come in a certain size and shape when they do the yearbook photos. What are those dimensions? And in my school, the width is about 70% of the height. So we can make that adjustment under layouts, picture adjustments. And so here's your ratio right here. Right now I've got it for this demo at 75%. But if you can watch them as I change this, you notice how I'm squeezing them. They're not really the correct proportions anymore. Or if I go really too far, then it makes everybody look a lot wider. Again, not proportionate. So you're just going to have to decide for yourself, what is that percentage going to be? So let's do an example here. I'm going to add a student here, right here on this. To add a student, by the way, just right click and change the picture, and then change the name, and you got yourself a student. So I'm going to click on change picture, and I'm going to go to a different folder. I got some avatars here, or I've got Kevin Minion, and I got a typical yearbook photo. So let's go to my yearbook photo, and I'm going to right-click on the photo and look at the properties of this photo. I want to see what the dimensions are. Under details, I can see my dimensions are 128 by 183. So all of your pictures need to conform to the same dimensions. So I'm going to take that 128, my calculator, and I'm going to divide that by 183, and I can see that it's, oops, what did I do? Let's try that again. 128 divided by 183, and I get pretty close to 70.7. So that would be cool if the whole class were to conform so that they're not distorted. But as you can see, this class has got a 0.75 ratio, so it kind of stretched this picture out a little more than I wanted to. So if you really want for a particular picture that has different dimensions, To fit in and not be distorted, then you're going to have to do a little editing. I use paint and just drag one of the borders in or up like you're cropping the photo, and away you go. Let's say she doesn't want that picture, change picture to Kevin Minion. You can do any picture you want. Okay. The other thing about picture adjustments is what about the borders? You can see I got this border around Veronica in all the pictures, especially the ones that have a colored background. You can tell. And in an earlier video, you saw that the borders do change colors for different reasons. So you should decide how thick you want your borders to be. So you can see them growing as I change this right before your eyes there. If you want it a little bit bigger than 0.05, how about 0.06? You know, the screen that I'm using to project gives me lots of space, so I'm going to make my pictures bigger. At some point, they start to overlap, and so I'm going to have to separate them a little bit and make use of all this extra space that I've got. And of course, when you make all these changes, don't forget that if you want to save this layout so it becomes your new default, I'm just dragging them into place right now, and you get the idea. I think that's pretty much it for picture adjustments. It's pretty simple. That concludes that section. Now, what's left is selecting students. So, by the way, if I right-click on this, it goes backwards. Selecting students is my next activity. Selecting students is as easy as right-click select, and it keeps track of how often the students are being selected. It's not like your popsicle system where you'll never know how many times someone has randomly pulled that popsicle stick with that name on it. So this keeps track, and it's pretty fair at making sure that everybody gets picked accordingly. So there's another way to select, as I've shown before. Just a left click up here will select the student, and if you want to deselect it, you just click on it again. Now, if you select the student, the assumption is that they get a participation point. If you're going to use points, which is in a later video, then it'll keep track. And if you want to, you can show these points right now. So for demonstration purposes, you see Benny got picked, and we assume that he gets a point. Now, let's say Damien gets picked. You see he got picked, and we're assuming it's a point. But what if Damien does not want to participate? Then you have two choices. Right-click and choose another student, but the previous student will lose that point. Or you could just skip Damien. Damien's trying, but he doesn't know the answer, or just wants to be skipped for the moment. It's up to you as a teacher how you want to use this. But if I skip, you notice it just goes back to 0. This is as if the student was not selected. But automatically a new student gets selected. It's just a time saver. Let's try the other option, which is random. So I'm going to pick someone else. Zoe doesn't want to participate, so she didn't get a participation point. But notice that she did get picked. And it's up to you to decide how you want to use your point system. But point system and class norms, we will talk more about those opportunities for tracking students. So there are other ways that students get picked. So stay tuned. There's going to be a flashcard program where maybe you're going to do a challenge round, and you want to pick a student. I picked Jennifer, and maybe a lifeline comes up, and I pick someone to call. Call a friend, Damien. I could still select students up here at the top as well. If I need more participation in what's going on. So that's flashcards, but there's also practice where I can pick students. And both flashcards and practice you can learn more about in a different video. But it's cool. What happens if it turns out I pick someone I forgot to mark as absent? If I go right-click absent, someone else fills in. Someone else fills in. It's just a real efficient way to do things. Okay, now I know what many of you might be thinking right now about is the possibility that you have a student in the class that should not be selected for whatever reason. Maybe you have a student who gets very high anxiety, should not be put on the spot, or maybe you have a student here that has more of an independent study program that you've put them on. For whatever reason you may have, I'm just going to pick you know Minion. Let's see, I guess it's Kevin Minion. I'm going to change his name. Simple as that. Just click on the name and change it. And let's say that Minion Kevin is very, very shy or high anxiety or for whatever reason should not be selected. So I'm going to double click on Kevin and I'm going to just say never select. And then from now on, the computer will ignore Kevin and Kevin will never be put in a position where he's on the spot and feeling very anxious. Thank you. This concludes the lesson.